Kinesiology 1, Chapter 3, Forearm and Arm. We're doing part 1 today, which means the forearm, and next week will be hand. Okay? Aye, aye, Captain. I don't hear you. Isn't that what it does? I can't hear you or something. SpongeBob. SpongeBob's where my kids weren't allowed to watch it. All right, so as we get through this, you guys are going to need to know parts of the forearm and hand, right? That's why we're learning it. So the anterior view is always in anatomical position, so that's going to be the soft part of your arm. Remember all the flexors, everything in the front other than your knees down, flex forward. Flex. Fetal position flexed. So I'll zoom a little bit so you can see. Actually, can you see any of these words?
No, not really. Yeah, I said glasses are off. Put your glasses on, Theo.
All right, here.
Thenar eminence.
So the thenar eminence is this squishy pad of your thumb on your hand. You'll hear me talk about the thenar eminence and hypothenar. So the opposite, the soft part, is hypo. To make you think or to help you remember, is hypo always means lower, I guess, right? So this side is lower because this is a fattier section. Thenar, hypo. All right, so we're going to learn about the carpals and the metacarpals and the phalanges, flexors, extensors, pronators, supinators. All right. Here's the lateral section. So as you're navigating, feeling around on your your partner today, kind of feel some of these bony landmarks. We're going to be talking about the radius and the ulna today. The ulna is the elbow bone that goes down. You can feel it all the way down. And then there's this tiny little bump, and that's the head of it. So that's where it ends to then become your wrist bones. So that articulates or touches your wrist bones. So ulna is going to be on the pinky side. Your radius is going to be this side. So this bone here is the radius. All right. So there's some muscles and stuff here. It doesn't matter, this diagram. You can go back and look at it later. But we're going to be talking about the ends. Remember we talked about the top of the humerus? Now we're going to talk about the distal part of the humerus bone. So that's where we're getting our epicondyles. And I'll show you a picture when we get to the bones here of the epicondyles. You have your lateral epicondyle and your medial. So we're going to learn about golfers. I think we did.
Yeah, we did.
Last week. Yeah, golfers and tennis elbow. And that's what's getting affected, the tendons that are on these epicondyles. So when you're palpating your partner today, be careful when you're palpating around here. Don't push too hard because you're going to, hit an endangerment area or hit that nerve that goes through the ulnar nerve that goes through that elbow joint. That's the funny bone, is the ulnar nerve technically. So when you hit that and it's like, it's not funny, it's not funny, that's what we're talking about. I always say that. It's not funny. So I'll show you guys those epicondyles, where they're at, and I'll let you guys feel them too, okay? You can kind of just feel it anyhow, where there's notches, or balls, I guess, at the end of the joint there. Then we're going to talk about something called the elbow or the olecranon process. That is your elbow joint. This is part of your ulna bone. So this is that tiny little bone. All right, let's look at this picture. Here's the bones, like I said, I promised you. So this is that lower half of the humerus, that distal end. So the distal end here, you're going to have more joints that you guys get to learn. The good thing is these joints also tell you what the two bones are that are articulating. So you have your humerus, that top bone that we dived into last week. And then the bottom bones here is your radius on your thumb side and your ulna on your pinky side. Yes? Maybe that'll be my new right. Yes! Just like that. All right, over here, you have your humeral radial joint. Sometimes these words are hard to get out. That is when your humerus and your radius join together, articulate at the humeral radial joint. The opposite, humero-ulnar joint, means it's where your humerus and your ulna meet together. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then you have where you have the distal end and the proximal. Proximal means closer to the main body or the heart. Distal is further from the heart, right? This section here is your proximal radio-ulnar joint. So that's when the two bottom bones meet together, because they have to. The ligaments keep them together. And then down here, right above the wrist joint, is your distal. So that distal radio-ulnar joint. And then if we're looking at this picture here, this is them in anatomical position. So, what hand is this? Right. Right hand. So, right hand, we're looking at this. This outside on the radius side is going to be your lateral epicondyle. So, in this picture, this little section here, lateral epicondyle. And this section over here is your medial epicondyle. So the epicondyle is on the top bone. I'm sorry, it's right here. Let's see, where am I going? Down into the rest of the hand and the wrist. So you've heard of the word carpal tunnel? Well, that's because the issue is happening with the carpals here. So your wrist has a bunch of tiny, tiny bones, 8 of them, called the carpal bones. Those are the bones that articulate with your forearm bone and into your hand bones. So you have carpals, and then the further we go down, we have something called metacarpals. So the metacarpals is actually in your hand. This part, if you had no fingers, you would still have metacarpals. So you can feel along here the tiny little bone going up until the joint of your fingers, and each of those are called a metacarpal. We also have them on the feet. Instead of carpals, the feet are called tarsals and metatarsals. So once you learn that, I think it'll be good when we get to the ankle and the feet. Phalanges or digits are a fancy name for fingers. So anything coming off of the hand are your phalanges or your digits. And they are named by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thumb is number 1. I am number 1. Then you have 3 joints other than your thumb in your fingers. So you have your proximal joint, and if you just look at your hand, where your creases are divides each joint. So you have your proximal joint, your medial or your middle joint, and your distal joint of your phalanges. And then all those have fun little names. So over here, this is fun. We're just going to go to this bottom one called distal interphalangeal joint. So what that means, if you break down the word, if you're looking at a test question or trying to figure out what the heck we're talking about, distal means it's the last joint between interphalangeal, between the phalanges. So it's that last joint. Okay? And then so on. There's the proximal interphalangeal joint. And then here, where we got? Here's the middle. What? So you have your distal, your middle, and your proximal.
Hold up then.
Hold up!
So the
The first joint is distal.
and then
middle,
and then proximal.
proximal.
Like the bones are distal, middle, proximal.
So it's at the end of it. The closer. So you have your
But the
distal
joint-
phalange, but the joint is below it.
Right. Okay. Okay. I got it. It's just that one was in that one's the pinky finger's labeled distal, proximal, no middle.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be middle. I took it from the internet.
You took it from the book.
I took it from the book. Come on, trail guide. So, where are we at?
I mean, it's probably not like it's really
Detailed. No,
important thing to know.
it's
but-
fine as long as you know one's at the distal, the next one's medial, and then the next one is proximal.
Okay.
So then we're looking at metacarpal phalangeal joints, and those are the joints that combine your phalanges with your carpals. That is labeled weird.
Labeled wrong. Where are the actual bones of the phalanges, the proximal?
The bones are
Not the joints.
the bones are. Well, over here here's the joints on this side. So the name of the joint is the name of the joint above it combined with the next.
I'm just gonna have to.
Well,
email
no, it's
Mr.
just,
Wheel.
it's the furthest joint, so distal,
Distal,
proximal.
proximal
And then this is the metacarpal phalangeal, because it's
joint.
yeah.
And the actual
Oh,
fingers,
Theo nailing this. Good
Actual
job,
finger
girl.
bones.
the actual fingers are distal, like the bone itself, not the
Got
joint.
it.
Does that make
Right.
sense?
Good job.
So yeah, so you got the bone, and then the joint under it is the distal interphalangeal joint, and then the next one for your middle bone would be connected to the proximal, so that joint is the proximal interphalangeal joint.
Got it.
Make sense?
Got it. Yeah.
Whoever's watching this is like, I have no clue what's going on. Just know that it's named after the joint above it.
Got it.
Or the bone, I'm sorry, not joint. The joint is named after the bone above it. There's no middle. It just goes distal to proximal. Anyhow, who cares about this? Okay, these are the carpal bones. We're going to dive more a little bit next week. Diving. I'm going to kind of show you them today and give you like a good phrase to help remember them. But these are them. I don't know which slide it is, but on the pinky side, closest to your ulna is your pisiform, your triquetrum. Then we have your lunate, scaphoid. Bottom layer is your trapezium, your trapezoid, your capitate, and your hamate.
So they're showing the picture of the hand from the top of the hand. Is it?
Yeah, we're looking at this
So we're
end,
looking at
this side,
so
But-
that's the left hand. Or no, that's
right
the
hand. I
Top
think
of
they
the-
use the right side a
top
lot.
of the right hand.
Top of the right hand.
Exterior, posterior of the right
And there's another slide later explaining these more, but I just want you to be aware right now that there's 8 carpal bones. 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom. All right, here's a little picture of some bony landmarks we need to know. Whee! All right, we'll start at the hand. So the bone that they're talking about here is your metacarpal. This is the 4th digit, so ring finger. The head of it, I think this part's really confusing because I would think head would be closer to the head, but the head of it is where it meets the finger. Then you have something called the shaft, right? And then the base. The base is actually in the wrist joint. So get familiar with that. Here's the opposite side so you can kind of see that. Make it make sense. And there's a picture of anterior and posterior sides, and we'll kind of look at both of them. So your ulna side always on your pinky side, and your radius always on the thumb side, just to help you out. And then right in here, the main thing I want you to know, which you can learn about all these bony landmarks like the trochlea, coronoid fossa, but this is generally where muscles will attach, and that's why we have bony landmarks, right? So here you have that medial epicondyle, this lumpy section here, and then your lateral, kind of like I showed on the other one. You have your epicondyle, so your epicondyle, and your condyle. Your condyle is going to be kind of above it. But for us, make sure you know where the lateral and the medial epicondyle are. Alrighty. Move over here. This is if you were looking at the back of their arm so they can see their elbow. So where am I at? Olecranon process, that's your elbow. Yeah? Yeah! And then here, see this groove for the ulnar nerve? That is the section that you hit when you hit your funny bone. So if you're feeling that, find your olecranon process, and off the side a little bit, you have your soft spot, and that's that funny bone area. And then again, another way to see where the epicondyle for lateral and medial epicondyle are, right? Now on your humerus, you have a little concave part that is called the olecranon fossa. So that's where, and I'm going to move away from the camera real quick to show the skeleton. This little divot here is where your elbow can nicely go into. So fossa, kind of like your subscapulus, your infraspinatus, they all have fossas. Well, your elbow has a fossa so that it can get into full extension, or else you'd have a limitation with your elbow joint. Whee! All right, look at these lovely bones. These are the ulna and radius. So the top section here is going to be your proximal section where your elbow is and where it connects or articulates with your humerus. And this bottom section is where it articulates with all your carpal or your wrist bones. So let's zoom here. So anytime you guys see the word styloid process, think of like the point of a pen, stylus. There's always going to be a projection for things to attach to. Kind of like right below your ear where that soft spot, I said there's a styloid process there that you don't want to push too hard and it'll break because it's like a little, tiny little pen tip in there, and snap that bad boy. We're going to go up. Okay, so you have the head of your radius. Think of it like a ball and socket. It's not a ball and socket, but that's the rounded part on bones, the head. Then you have your neck. That's where the head and the whole shaft or the whole bone connects. Kind of like your head and your neck connects to the whole of your body. There's a little nubby here called the radial tuberosity. That's an attachment point for some muscles. All right. So that trochlea has a notch where it also goes into from the humerus. So you have that little bump called the trochlea at the end of the humerus that also helps give you more mobility in your forearm for pronation and supination. So you need to have multiple sections on that joint where it can move. So that's what that is in your olecranon process. All right, moving down, you got coronoid. Some muscles will attach there. We'll go on with that when you see the muscles, or else you're just going to be like, what? There's something called a radial notch of your ulna. That's where your ulna and your radius kind of fit into each other. So you have a radial tuberosity, but you also have a ulnar tuberosity, kind of like how you have, and you'll learn when we do the hip, you have something called a greater trochanter. It's like a large tuberosity type deal. Something for it to connect to. All right, I think that's good there for now. Lister's tubercle. I think that's like a thumb muscle or something connects there. All right, from this end, if you're looking at the back part of them, you can kind of find that elbow, olecranon process, and then the head of the humerus and the neck of the humerus, all right? So, cool. Muscles and bones. And you're going to learn about this. Where are you guys at in anatomy?
Skin.
Skin? Okay.
We got about 16 weeks.
Of skin? 16 weeks of skin?
Till we get to like the muscles.
It's okay. So that'll be like a more in-depth version of this.
Great.
You guys should know all of this by then. No, it's okay if you don't learn every little notch and protuberance and trochanter of the body. It's okay.
I just want to get into the body with like anatomy.
Yeah, you will. Week 14. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, dude. I'm still in the chemistry chapters. Like,
Oof.
I hate everything. I'll burn it down soon.
It'll be
I got
fine.
shit coming.
All right, let's talk about the knob hill. The names they come up with. Your elbow, the olecranon process is A. So this is what happens when your humerus and your lower forearm and ulna are in a straight position. This is what it looks like. If you were looking at it, this is the picture, right? Just upside down. You have your epicondyles of the humerus that are kind of surrounding it, the lumps coming off of the humerus on the ends, where you get your golfers and your tennis elbow. And you have something above it called the supracondylar ridges. So supra means above and then beyond. I'm Superman, right? So this is always going to be above your epicondyles. So that's this little curvy here, okay? The razor's edge. Scary. More olecranon process. Say that 10 times. You're getting into the shafty poo of the ulna. Coming down to the head of the ulna. And then you have your little tip, your styloid process of the ulna. It's right there. Well, I'll be darned. Imagine breaking that little piece off. Woo!
So are you looking at it from the top there then?
We're looking at it from the back. So if you see this here, the olecranon in the olecranon fossa, like you can actually see the elbow,
Right.
we're looking at it from posterior view.
Okay.
And then the way you can figure out what the heck we're looking at here is if this is your elbow and it's the ulna, if you run around here and you add a hand, your pinky's going to be here and your thumb's going to be over here.
Okay.
So that's a good way to look at the bones and be like, I know what I'm looking at.
Okay. That's what I'm having.
So I'll go back.
So the razor's edge is on
The razor's edge is this.
posterior view.
This part of your ulna
Okay.
where you're going to do some of your fine digging, this whole bone.
Okay.
Collapsing airways, like in Taken. I love that movie. So that's the edge we're talking about, is the whole shaft of the ulna until it gets to from elbow to wrist. The pivot pass. These cool names, man. A, lateral epicondyle. So if it's lateral, we're looking this way. It's out here. So this appears to be a left arm. No.
I'm genuinely so confused.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, because the
It's-
view,
But you're looking at the back of it.
we're supposed to
And the
always be looking
radius
at
is on the thumb.
anatomical, but we're not.
No, because we
We
can't see
are
the
from
ulnar process.
From the back.
Yeah.
So we're
But
looking
it doesn't
at the back.
say.
So this is the butt.
posterior.
This is your right posterior arm in this picture.
Gotcha.
Because if you think about it,
Gotcha.
if I go down like here, olecranon process, ulna, pinky,
Yep.
that's the side that we're looking at here. Right?
Correct.
Man, my brain hurts. We need a break. All right, so lateral epicondyle, it goes to the head. That's the head of the humerus right here. right? This section here, it goes down the shaft of the radius, right? You go to the styloid process of the ulna, and then up here is Lister tubercle. Like I said, I believe it's a thumb muscle attachment, but don't quote me. Like I said, you're not going to know everything. I don't know everything. I'm still learning all the time. You always learn. Sometimes you hang on to the stuff you find fascinating, and then for me also, wrists and ankles are stupid. So
If you ever break your styloid process, best wishes. My son broke his, there's no blood flow to it.
ooh.
It takes forever to heal.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Rub it around it. More blood flow. That sounds terrible. Okay. Here is our fun little phrase for learning the carpal bones in the wrist. So it starts with proximal. Remember, that's closest to the heart. And distal. So there's, what the heck is that called when it's a phrase for the words? Acronym. Close. Acronym. I know I said it before and I forgot. All right, so it's she likes to play, try to catch her. So, again, these are the bones. So the first one, we're looking up here. Scaphoid. She, scaphoid, likes, lunate. 2, triquetrum. Play, pisiform. Pisiform, I believe, is like, it means P. See how it's a P shape? The way I remember is P for pisiform, P for pinky. So if you can find the pisiform, you know that that is the pinky side. So she likes to play, top, bottom. So you're not going to continue in like a clockwise pattern. You're going to go straight back to the opposite side. So she likes to play, try, trapezium, 2, trapezoid, catch, capitate, her, hamate. And I have this little picture here. So this is if you're looking at them palm side. And then obviously things get a little more confusing when you're looking at it top of the hand side, right? So I have a little thing down here that I thought of that helps me remember which T word is next to capitate. So if you look for trapezoid and there's a D at the end, decapitate, right? Off with her head is the picture I have. So that's a good way to remember which bone, which trap bone is next to capitate. Don't worry, guys. We'll get through this. The wrists and the hands suck.
Mnemonic device.
Mnemonic device. That. The phrase.
It's a mnemonic device.
It's a mnemonic.
Don't ask me to spell that.
Me neither. Right. Apply your learning. So we're not going to really apply the learning, but if I were to separate the bones, these are the shapes if you're looking at it in anatomical position. And you'll also notice that certain carpals articulate with certain phalanges. Or metacarpals, I guess. They're not phalanges yet.
Beginning of the phalanges.
The beginning of the phalanges.
The hook of the hamites.
Hook. All right. 4 primary groups of muscles. What that means is we're going to talk about flexors, extensors, pronators, and supinators. Whee! If you don't learn all these, that's okay. At least you need to know what part of the arm they are located. So let's go. Who cares about that picture? You can look at that in detail later if you want. So right now we are moving on to the elbow joints and some wrist joint for this chapter and finger movements. So the elbow does basically 2 things, but it does, have a little bit of the pronation and the supination. But the main function of the elbow joint is flexion extension because it's a hinge. So you have a lot of muscles that are helping out when flexing your elbow joints. It's not just your biceps. You have this whole slew of other brachies. You have your flexors, so anything on this side that tightens and crosses that joint is going to help with that movement of shortening the degree of angle for flexion. You even have some words that are going to say pronator, and you're confused because you're like, that sounds like it's a pronator. Well, it is, but some muscles do multiple actions. As you remember that the deltoid is like the master of all shoulder movements. So big list of flexors, and then you have teeny tiny little extensors of the elbow. So the main extensor elbow is your triceps, and you have a tiny, tiny little muscle called the aconius. So that's going to straighten your elbow joint. All right, now we have our forearm supination and pronation. Remember, supination is when you hold a bowl of soup. Pronation is when you're pro at the slap game, right? Pronation. All right, so typically your pronators are going to tell you the names of the action. The muscles will, I mean. Pronators teres, pronators quadratus, and then you have something called the brachioradialis that helps with both. If you don't know where the muscle is, as we learned, the way to remember is brachii means it's on the upper arm, and radialis means it's also on the radius. So that means it's somewhere on, I guess, the thumb side, yeah, and connecting to that top bone. So it's going to cross this joint. So those are your pronators. Your supinators, you have a muscle called the supinator that's kind of in the wrist, and it helps you to do this. Because you do have a little bit of movement with your ulna and radius that kind of move over each other in a way. Not quite at the elbow joint. And that's why you have all your extra little lumps and bumps and stuff in the elbow at the end of the humerus to allow for some of these movements. So you also, your supinator helps to supinate, but your biceps brachii and your brachioradialis. Okay. Your wrist. Your wrist does some funky things. Your wrist extends. So here's flexion of the wrist, extension of the wrist, or we can hyperextend. So flexion, remember everything flexes forward. And if you're in anatomical position, remember abduction brings it away. So even if I'm like this, abduction, I know that's confusing, would be thumb side abduction. So no matter what position your arm is, think about what it is doing in anatomical position. So I might be sleeping like this, and then my hand is like this, or we'll say outwards. So it is, abducting away, right? Abducting. So, see, it's confusing, right? So abducting. So that same motion, depending on what movement you're doing, is always going to go back to your anatomical position, and that's how you think of the action. That was a really hard way to explain that, but sorry. Sometimes I'm just like, oh. So remember, ab pulls it away from the body. Adduction brings it back to the body. Right. Yeah? Okay. So the good thing about most of the forearm muscles that do the wrist, so your forearm muscles are in control of moving your wrists and your hands. A lot of your hand muscles are tendons coming from your forearm, and that's why we can do this. We don't have a whole lot of muscle mass in our hands, so most of the strength's coming from the forearms. So if you look at the first picture, extension, notice that all of those muscles start with the word extensor. Isn't that cool? So you have extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis. So that's telling you it's an extensor that probably goes around the carpals, right? And attaches on the radius. So break down the words. We're going to go down to the third word, extensor carpi ulnaris, or ulnaris, sorry. This is an extensor that runs across the carpals and attaches on your ulna side. So as long as you have a clue where it might be at, you're good to go. All right. Where are we at here? Okay, so your abduction. I'm trying to figure out where I put these. So this is your abductors here, and these are your adductors. So your abductors, which is right below that, there's a lot. A lot of your extensors will do multiple things, right, like the deltoid, but also the main one on the bottom, abductor pollicis brevis, is going to mean that it is abducting that wrist joint. And I'll explain what indicis and pollicis is when we get to the hands, so I don't confuse you guys too much, because it's really not that important. Just look at the first word, and it's going to tell you what's happening. Don't be overwhelmed. The forearm sucks. Adduction. There's nothing called an adductor, but the extensors are kind of doing that. All right? But if you think about the compartments, so if it's coming from this direction, right, these, where am I at? The extensors are in the back. These extensors are going to pull on this side and go this way, but it also will help pull this. So it's kind of doing one of these. So I'm going back and to the side. So it can do that motion, right? So if it's on that side, that's the side it's pulling towards. And the more we work on this, the more it'll make more sense. You guys, I'm sorry. Flexion. Flexing of the wrist. That's pretty easy. All of your extensors are basically going to be on this side of the body. All of your flexors are basically going to be on this side of the body. So your flexor muscles in the forearm will be the flexor carpi radialis, ulnaris. You have something called palmaris, your flexor digitorum, and so on. It's a mouthful. All right, the hand and fingers. Remember, flexion for the fingers is going to be one of these. Extensors are going to be stretching them back out. So look at these muscles and see how the main muscles in the forearm, like I was talking about, and then you have your, I'm going to zoom, these tendons that branch off of that run down your hand and connect to joints in the fingertips, which is going to cause that motion of either flexion or extension. All right. So your extensors of your fingers are going to be technically on the extensor side of your wrist or your forearm, right? The flexors of your fingers are going to be on the flexor side of your forearm. If it says the word digitorum, it's doing something with the digits. We'll learn about lumbricals and interaceae when we do the hands. So again, I don't confuse you too much. And for this instance, if you see the word flexor digitorum superficialis, that is talking about a flexor in your wrist that flexes your fingers. So just break it down, guys. Break it down for me. As long as you know that everything flexes forward, we're good. The thumb is stupid. So the thumb also has muscles that flex, extend, does opposition. Then you have your abduction, adduction. So again, these are going to tell you what they do. Pollicis means thumb. But these are going to tell you what it is doing to that next muscle. Got it?
Got it. Yes.
Cool.
That's fun.
All right, let's just learn some muscles now. We're just going to do forearm muscles, and then and I'm going to go through the digitorums quick because literally it doesn't matter. They all do something else but do a different digit. For instance, have you noticed yet when you're rubbing on somebody's anterior arm that their fingers start curling up? That's because we're applying pressure to the flexors and causing that reaction to the fingers to curl up. So it's just a natural reaction. Elbow and forearm muscles. Let's do this. So remember your biceps brachii?
Yeah.
Well, this is a guy called the brachialis. So it's kind of around the same area the bicep is. And it also helps flex the elbow. So the bicep flexes the elbow and the shoulder, but now this guy that's a little lower is going to basically just be the elbow flexor, the main elbow flexor. All right. So it originates on that distal part of the humerus. So the end of the humerus closest to that distal end, right? And then it inserts on your tuberosity and the coronoid process of your ulna. So as long as you know, where's my picture guy? Or my skeleton guy. This section here is called the tuberosity of the ulna. So when it contracts, it pulls that into a straight elbow. A flexion elbow, just kidding. I'm looking at this part of the body. So the brachialis does that flexion.
So this muscle is not the real obvious. It's more here.
So you have your biceps, and then your brachialis is kind of that lower section. But your bicep is the bigger of the two, the more bulky one. When you see people flex, you're seeing the bicep.
Is that
What, the brachialis? What am I looking at?
Oh, never mind. I'm on the wrong page.
What page are you looking at?
The one opposite.
Mm.
I was looking at the I was
Brachioradialis?
looking at the brachialis.
Okay.
Brachioradialis. Sorry, I'm a page behind.
Oh, you're fine. So brachioradialis is another little elbow flexor, but this guy also helps to assist in supinating and pronating. So tiny little forearm muscle. It's this muscle that you see that gets large on some people that use their hands a lot.
Has knots.
Yeah, so that is your brachioradialis. It's usually a fattier muscle right up here on the ulnar side. Or ulnar, that radius side. I no longer can word because there's too many slides today. So break down the word. Brachii means what? Upper arm. Radialis means what? Radius. It is on your upper arm, your humerus, and your radius. So it goes across the joints. Now, this is a fun one. Remember that styloid process, that the stylus pen that you don't want to break? Well, the stylus pen on the end of the radius is where this guy inserts. So it runs the whole length of your forearm. So goes up here, runs the whole length of the forearm, and connects at the end here. Pronator. See the shape of this.
Ooh, it looks like it's Aries.
Ooh. Now, because of the shape of this, it doesn't just go up and down. It has a little angle to it. It crosses over. Because of that, it's going to turn your hand into a pronation. Because it's pulling, we'll say, pulling that radius closer. I need to get a video of you guys. After this, I'll pull up a video of what it looks like with the bones. Or, I don't know. I'll figure out how to show you guys.
So you were going to take a video of all of us, like...
Well, you can feel it moves a little bit, right? It doesn't just, it's not just two solid bones that don't move. Like there's a little bit of movement with the pronation and the supination. All right. This guy starts at the medial epicondyle, runs across, connects on the medial part of the radius. So it crosses over from medial to lateral, hence that whole pronation. All right, here's another guy. This guy tells us exactly what we need to know. Quad means four, so it's four-sided. Pronator quadratus. It is a tiny little wrist muscle that just connects from the ulna to the radius and helps you to pronate those bones. That is all I'm indulging. That's how far I'm going in with this. Okay, so you had your pronator quadratus. Now you have your supinator. This one say, oh, for God's sakes.
Yeah, that's what she said.
I told you the forearm sucks. I hate it. I hate it too. So you have your supinator. Please don't get this wrong on a quiz question when I said, what's the action of a supinator? Because if you say flexion of the elbow, you need to just, like, go home permanently. All right. So the supinator, because it does that movement of supination, it's going to cross over on the body, right? So it's going to originate over here on the lateral epicondyle. And there's a bunch of other sections because of the shape of it. It's on a bunch of ligaments, all that fun stuff. And then the crest of the ulna, so it's kind of hanging out in between the two. And then it crosses over and attaches onto the radial shaft. So the long bone of the radius, yeah?
Yeah.
Good old anatomy. All right, we got through that part. We're almost done. I promise. Now we have your extensors. Does anybody know what these do? You guys are doing great. You're gonna do great. All right, this is if I were to cut your arm in half, where the extensors are and the flexors. Now, remember I said they're pretty much on this side and then this side? Yes and no. They're kind of off to the side a little bit. But for the most part, most of your flexors are on the soft part, and then the hairy part of your arm is your extensors. For the most part. But if you're looking at it this way, this is his right arm, it's going to kind of, the territory kind of crosses a little into like a rotation.
That makes sense.
Right? Because they also do different things. Some of them help pronate and supinate. We're getting through these quick. Extensor carpi radialis longus. So, the first thing that you know that it does, it extends. So if it extends, it's probably on the hairy side of your arm. Probably. And it is. It crosses the carpi, so the radiocarpal joint. And it's a longus. There's usually a longus and a brevis. A longus is the long version that's around the same area, and the brevis is the shortened version of, we'll say, that muscle. They usually do the same action. All right. This guy has several origins because of the shape of the muscle. It kind of starts on the lateral supracondyle of the humerus, and it runs down and attaches onto the base of the second metacarpal. So the second joint's metacarpal. You have your carpals, so we're talking about this section, metacarpal, the base. And because it's there, it helps your finger go like this. I have an idea.
Ooh, look at what the brevis attaches to.
Here's longus, and now here's brevis. Same thing. We're doing the same thing. They're extending the wrist, abducting the wrist, and assisting the flexion of elbow. Got it? So it crosses over, again, connects. This one is on the third metacarpal. Alrighty. Extensor carpi ulnaris. So this is telling you it's probably on the ulnar side, on the hairy part of your arm, right? So this side. So it's going to be, see, it does cross over a little bit to help with adduction a little, but primarily it's on the outside. So this is how I'm going to go through the forearms quicker because they suck. Extensor digitorum. This one's kind of important because if you look at this whole muscle here, see how it branches off into tendons that literally go into all but your thumb. So all of these are going to help to extend those fingers and the wrists. I did lie about that one. It doesn't actually do your finger, it just does your wrist. That's an idea, but it's fine. It's fine. You guys don't know if I'm wrong.
Question on this on the index.
She's going to miss it.
Coming for you.
All right, this originates on the common extensor tendon that comes from that lateral epicondyle. So lateral side of the humerus runs down and connects to those fingers, we'll say. All right. And that goes all the way down. See that it goes to the bases of the middle and distal phalanges? So it goes all the way down. Here's the red marks here. Because without that, you would only be able to extend it to a point. Not all joints would extend. So if the word has digitorum in it, digits are being moved. Flexors of the wrists and fingers. All right. Flexor carpi radialis. It flexes, goes across the carpals, and it's on the radius. So this flexes your wrists. All of these are going to do something with your wrists, typically, or your fingers, right? It abducts the wrist and it flexes the elbow a little bit because it crosses the elbow joint. And then runs down. You'll see something. I'm going to show you this here. This is connective tissue, the aponeurosis. This is the cable cord tire for all those tendons so that you don't have tendons just floating around in your hands. Aponeurosis, the cable tie. The cable tie for your tendons. Cable ties.
We thought you said tire.
Tire?
Yeah.
Did I say
Tie
tie?
for your car.
Cable tire. And I'm
Tie.
like,
Oh, sorry. I guess I'm getting redneck through the years. Tire. Tie. Palmaris longus. It tenses the palmar fascia. Flexes your wrist, flexes your elbow. It hangs out, starts at the medial epicondyle, kind of hangs out in the ulna and the radius, right? Runs down, inserts onto the retinaculum, which is connective tissue of your palm. So that's cool. So palmaris longus, know that it does something. It tenses up your palmar fascia, so your palm of your hand. Yeah? We're getting through. There's a couple more and then break. I know, this sucks. Flexor carpi ulnaris. What's it do? Flexes. And it adducts, flexes the elbow, goes across the carpals. It's on the ulnar side typically. Notice most of these are kind of hanging out, like starting at that medial epicondyle. So when those tendons get inflamed, that's when you have issues with the golfer's elbow. Because of all, it doesn't, you don't know which tendon it is, but it could be any of those tendons coming from your forearm. So the best treatment for golfers or tennis elbow is massaging thoroughly the forearms so that you can relax those muscles that form a tendon to connect on that epicondyle. So again, this guy, flexor digitorum, superficialis flexes your digits. And then if it flexes your digits, it crosses your wrist, so it's probably doing the same thing. So you can either just do one, or you can do them both, like
What is that?
Thriller.
Yes.
The Thriller is the flexor digitorum superficialis. Without that muscle, you can't do it. All right, so that's what it does. You have your profundus. So I'm going to go back, flex, flex. They do the same thing. Flexes your digitorum, your digits. Boom, baby. Same thing. Medial epicondyle. Aconius. Remember, this is the little helper muscle on the back of your elbow that helps you extend it. You have your triceps to do most of the work, but your aconius is going to kind of chime in and help out. Most people have really weak triceps. Ever try to do those like chair dips and then your tricep is cramping? Like, that's stupid. All right, it originates on the lateral epicondyle. So again, if you're having issues with your inflammation on the lateral side, this muscle might be shut up. might be a problem. All right. You're done. All right. So last but not least, I don't know why this is here. Because it's, I guess, still an extensor. So when you see the word indicis, we're talking about your pointer finger. Pollicis thumb, indicis pointer.
You really see that.
What, the movements?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see things move, your tendons move when you move your fingers and wrists. It's real cool. And you can even, like, wiggle them around. I'm just thinking of, like, cutting up a whole chicken. Gross. All right, this guy, there's something called interosseous membrane. So between your ulna and your radius is a membrane, connective tissue called the interosseous. So if you see that, just know it's a sheath in between, so the bones aren't just like all willy-nilly, right? We all need connective tissue everywhere. And it starts there, runs down to your finger, and connects at that second metacarpal joint. All right, so we're saving part 2 for next week. Thank God. Woo. Now I need to learn how to stop this.